This is African American History is American History. Welcome. I'm your host, Harlan Kearsley. This program's goal is to foster understanding, promote discussion, and expand knowledge through stories of historical events, bios of unsung heroes, as well as timely and relevant news stories which hopefully will paint a vivid picture of the effects of segregation, discrimination, and bigotry on the lives of both blacks and whites. Comparisons will be made between the many racially fractured periods of American history and what's going on right now. Most people don't realize just how much the role of race has played in how cities across America developed. The highways and public spaces that shaped our cities were often intentionally built at the expense of minority citizens. According to numerous biographers, when the urban planner Robert Moses began building projects in New York during the 1920s, he bulldozed Black and Latino homes to make way for parks and built highways through the middle of minority neighborhoods. An unapologetic racist and segregationist, Moses even ordered his engineers to build the bridges low over the Southern State Parkway connecting New York City to Jones Beach in Long Island. This kept city buses, which would likely be carrying poor black and brown people, from passing underneath. He favored highways over public transit, and this helped create the modern suburbs of Long Island. Moses was not a trained civil engineer, yet his programs and designs influenced a generation of engineers, architects, and urban planners nationwide. Moses was a man who never held elected office. He never even learned to drive, yet modernized New York for the motor age. In Robert A. Caro's 1974 biography of Robert Moses, titled The Power Broker, he described Moses as, quote, the most racist human being I have ever encountered, end quote. Speaking at a White House news briefing on November 8, 2021, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg described the recently signed into law $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill as something that would potentially do away with the racism that guided past decisions on how roads and bridges were built.
Secretary Mayor Pete, could you give us the breakdown of the implementation of Justice 40 with the infrastructure package that's now passed and signed into law? And also, can you give us the construct of how you will deconstruct the racism that was built into the roadways that you talked to the griot earlier when you broke that information with us? Can you talk to us about how that could be deconstructed?
For sure, yeah. So the principle of Justice 40 is that at least 40% of the clean investments in this bill will go to benefit the communities that are overburdened and underserved. So part one of that is defining those investments that are eligible, and that's a lot of it, and we're working to map out kind of program by program, mode by mode, what would qualify. For example, if we're buying clean buses, right, how do we make sure in terms of where those buses go, but also looking at the business opportunity, the jobs that are going to be created, the businesses that will have a chance to compete for the business opportunities it creates. That, too, I think is a very important element of equity here that's in the spirit of Justice 40. And again, we have a lot of guidance and oversight from the White House since that's an administration-wide initiative. But we know that we've got to build our own internal kind of ways of aligning and defining that inside the administration. As to where we target those dollars, you know, I'm still surprised that some people were surprised when I pointed to the fact that if a highway was built for the purpose of dividing a white and a black neighborhood, or if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly Black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or that would have been in New York, was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices. I don't think we have anything to lose by confronting that simple reality, and I think we have everything to gain by acknowledging it and then dealing with it, which is why the Reconnecting Communities, that $1 billion, is something we want to get to work right away, putting to work.
But that's such a heavy lift. I mean, you have to reconstruct communities that this happened to. As you said, some of these beltways and interstates and roadways were built before the Civil Rights Act, before the Voting Rights Act, and were meant to be racist. But how do you go about redefining and replanning these roadways and communities that are already settled in since then?
So what's interesting is it's going to vary by community, and we have to listen to the community. Sometimes it really is the case that an overpass went in a certain way that is so harmful that it's got to come down or maybe be put underground. Other times, maybe it's not that way. Maybe the really important thing is to connect across it, to add rather than subtract. And that's where we don't want to impose a one-size-fits-all answer from here. But when we were out in Syracuse, for example, looking at I-81, we saw the local vision for how they want to get past those divisions. And those local ideas are going to be taken very seriously as we try to meet the spirit of this law.
Thank you.
This is African American History is American History. Robert Moses was born in New Haven, Connecticut on December 18, 1888. In 1897, the Moses family moved to New York City. Robert Moses and his brother Paul attended several schools for their elementary and middle school education, including the Mohegan Lake School, a military academy near Peekskill in Westchester County, New York. Moses graduated from Yale College with a BA in 1909 and went on to earn a PhD in political science from Columbia University in 1914. In 1924, then New York Governor Al Smith appointed Moses chairman of the State Council of Parks and president of the Long Island State Park Commission. Moses displayed a strong command of the law as well as matters of engineering, and he quickly became known for his skill in drafting legislation. Robert Moses was called the best bill drafter in Albany. Shortly after President Franklin D. Roosevelt's inauguration in 1933, the federal government found itself with millions of New Deal dollars to spend. The only problem was states and cities had few projects ready. Moses was one of the few local officials who had projects shovel-ready. For that reason, New York City was able to obtain significant Works Progress Administration, WPA, Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, and other Depression-era funding. From January 18, 1934 to May 23, 1960, Robert Moses served as the Parks Commissioner of New York City. During the Depression, Moses, along with New York City Mayor Fiorello H. LaGuardia, was especially interested in creating new pools and other bathing facilities, such as those in Jacob Riis Park, Jones Beach, and Orchard Beach. He devised a list of 23 pools around the city. The pools would be built using funds from the Works Progress Administration. 10 of those WPA pools were designated as New York City landmarks in 2007 and 2008. However, Moses fought to keep African American swimmers out of his pools and beaches. An assistant recalled Moses demanding the pools be kept a few degrees colder. You see, Moses believed African Americans didn't like cold water. Moses' reputation began to fade during the 1960s. He picked several unpopular and controversial political battles and found himself on the wrong side of each, including his campaign against the free Shakespeare in the Park program and his effort to destroy a shaded playground in Central Park to make way for a parking lot for the expensive Tavern on the Green restaurant. Now, here's the paradox. Robert Moses was clearly a bigot, a racist, and a staunch segregationist. Yet few men have had as much impact on the shaping of New York City. His designs, which have outlived him, he died in 1981, have helped to make it one of the most vibrant and racially divided big cities in America. This has been African American History is American History. The episode you've been listening to, Robert Moses, Racism by Design, was written and directed by Harlan Kearsley. A special thanks to whitehouse.gov. I'm Harlan Kearsley, and on behalf of everyone here at African American History is American History, thank you for listening. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Once you do, you'll be notified as soon as new episodes are posted. Thanks again, and please, stay safe. African American History is American History. Copyright H.C. Kearsley, 2021.